A very good evening. I'm not entirely sure what I can really sort of add to the debate. I'm not a politician, I'm not a policy maker. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind sitting down, but that is some consolation that I'm here with a walking stick tonight and actually not in a wheelchair. Due to my very good friend and Dr. Dana Urban, who I personally accredit for keeping me off four wheels and on two legs just about. I've been a patient client of Dr. Urban since 2004. Basically, I have an inherited condition, psoriatic arthritis, which has come down from the grandfather's side through the father's side and now to me. In a nutshell, because I know that time's of the essence, I've had this by definition of my age of 42 for 35, 40 years. It's only really manifested in the last 14 years, so it's genetically inherited, it's defined as incurable, and the very, very best people, I don't want this to sound like it's a vendetta against the, the national health or the allopathic system. Those that are in that system have done their very, very best. But I've had it not only from the GP, who's been very sympathetic, and from the Royal Free Hospital where I go to, the consultants, right up to people such as legal medical witnesses, that there is no cure. So the good news was you won't be in a wheelchair for 25 years. The bad news is it's incurable, and that's really it. And by the way, when I suggest anything slightly to the right of pharmaceutical-based solutions, it was, you're joking, that's mumbo-jumbo, and so on and so forth. So I'm really just speaking as someone who's at the sharp end of this. I'm not a policy maker, I'm not involved in medical practice like all of you good people are. And I'm just somebody who lives with a condition where on the one side of the divide it's incurable, nothing we can do, inherited, have some medication, disease-modifying agents, but it's actually, that's really what you've got to work with. So a friend of mine who was very much involved in Vedic philosophy and who had been involved in the Hare Krishna movement for many years recommended that I sort out the Ayurvedic Corporation of Great Britain, then in Wimpole Street, and by attending there in 2004, as I met Dr. Dana Urban. And very much like the gentleman that was here before, my GP often gives me 15 to 20 minutes. I found that an hour and a half consultation was not only long but much more personal and in depth. And one of the things that really struck me is the approach. There are children, for example, in Great Ormond Street that are being treated with very similar medication to that which I am, and indeed 85-year-old men are. I was pleasantly surprised when I was told that Ayurveda takes the approach of what sort of person is likely to get X, Y, and Z condition rather than how do we treat the condition. So yes, it's chronic and degenerative, and that it could only be managed and would get worse. 7 years it was misdiagnosed, probably due to the fact that I used to run marathons and they were asking the wrong questions, so therefore they were bound to get the wrong answer. Not their fault, but that's the way, what they were looking at. They thought it was a bone-related condition. Psoriatic arthritis is now administered still to this day under rheumatology. And to his credit, because he was retired and wheeled back in, my first consultant, Dr. White, said, I'm going to tell you straight, even though we can put a man on the moon and grow Dolly the sheep out of a petri dish, and we can give you a prosthetic limb, we can't give you a prosthetic new central nervous system. And this is what this ultimately is, it's a destruction of the central nervous system. In other words, we can deal with the arthritis, we can't deal with the psoriasis. This is psoriasis gone mad. It was only then by studying Ayurveda, and both personally, because you have to become your own sort of self-understood, your own doctor with a very, very small d, that you start to get your head around the philosophy and you build it into a life thing more than just seeing it as something that is out there. So that's what I took on. You build it into your life, and it is, from my perspective, as someone who has a background in finance and media, intellectually I look at this as, well, what's the cost difference between this and the myriad of doctors and consultants and drugs that are being spent on me, which could achieve, personally speaking, it may not be the case for everybody, but in my condition, virtually zero, with a whole list of side effects, and then more drugs to counterbalance those side effects, versus something that I could take into my own life, and with minor dietary adjustments, lifestyle adjustments, sleep patterns and so forth. Fairly rudimentary, fairly simple, easy to understand, no great background required strategies, for want of a better word, which would actually put your life back on track. So on the one hand, the allopathic system seems to be costing millions, and even when I went to my PCT and asked for, and my GP supported, and my consultant at the Royal Free supported, trichomyopathy, all of a sudden no budget. Well, it might have had something to do with the 26 million they lost on into their Icelandic bank account. I don't know. That happened to coincide with his rejection. Again, a man with a glass office on the 14th floor I've never met to this day. I don't have a personal connection. There seems to be a correlation between being aloof and not having the funds in order to pursue a naturopathic way of actually treating a condition. So in my very, very simple analysis, and forgive me for the 8 memoirs, I didn't know how much time we'd have or how much you'd really want to hear, but I've got 19 years condensed there, and I've got some anecdotal evidence, well not anecdotal evidence really, it's firm evidence from those doctors that I've mentioned, and they're very good to me, but they now actually say this is incurable. Oh, and Luke's using dietary modifications as well as massage barefoot technology, but actually nothing's actually working allopathically, but the next step would be anti-TNF alpha therapy, which in simple speak to my mind is biological agents. So like I say, this isn't a vendetta. That's the rejection, even though the Queen, I understand, Her Majesty, actually is the patron of the homeopathy. She doesn't get a vote from my PCT. And I know which side of the divide I'm on. There's the allopathy, which has done absolutely nothing for me, apart from some pleasant words and some nice sort of sessions for 15 minutes every 4 months. And this is Ayurveda, which I now live and breathe. And I would actively recommend anybody to support this.
Thank you so much, Luke. As you are aware, Luke is talking about an industry that is worth $535 billion a year against someone like us who are offering non-invasive and trying to offer non-invasive and safe treatments. At this point,